أغادر اليوم وأنا مرتاح الضمير.
Good afternoon and thank you for joining us on FutureTV. I'm Linda Tamim and these are today's headlines. Syrian warplanes pound a house belonging to a member of Al-Awad family in Arsel. The Council of Maronite Bishops calls on the formation of a unity cabinet and the implementation of the Lebanese constitution. And a Russian plane carrying 37 tons of aid for Syrian refugees lands at the Rafiq Hariri International Airport. Syrian warplanes have pounded a house on the outskirts of Arsel, causing only material damage. The National News Agency says the house belongs to a member of Al-Awad family. The two-year violence in Syria has increasingly spilled over into Lebanon, with cross-border shelling in the north and east. President Michel Suleiman has repeatedly denounced the Syrian airstrikes in Lebanese soils, but Damascus denies it has ever been involved. Officials say Arsel is a key town for the smuggling of arms and the flow of fighters across the border, and Syrian authorities have repeatedly threatened to attack Lebanese territories if such occurrences continue. The Maronite Bishops' Council is calling officials to respect and implement the Constitution in resolving all challenges confronting the country. It also pressed officials to form a unity government that has the consensus of all parties. Referring to Mikati's recent resignation, the council said Lebanon almost lost its unity and the basis of its existence. The bishops also called on officials to return to their conscience, saying the nation is not a trial field and has no space for carrying out personal interests. They added that any political vacuum only creates chaos in the country, and any formed government that lacks consensus and doesn't have a unified mission will fail. The council finally called on holding polls in time and respecting the constitutional deadlines, showing that all parties are keen to preserve democracy and the Constitution. March 8th, coalition representatives held talks in Ain Tine to ease the recent rifts between Speaker Nabih Berri and the Free Patriotic Movement leader, MP Michel Aoun. Both have opposing views regarding the controversial electoral law and the formation of the cabinet. The meetings were held between Aoun, Marada Movement Chief MP Suleiman Frangiyi, Tashnak Party MP Hagop Pakradonyan, Hezbollah Liaison and Coordination Officer Wafi Safa, and Speaker Nabih Berri himself. No statements have been made regarding the success of the meetings. Delegates of Aoun's Free Patriotic Movement have announced the expected election polls to be postponed if the parliament gives the green light to the 1960 law. The delegates also said Aoun's party hasn't decided yet to boycott the upcoming binding consultations for the formation of a new government. And a Russian plane carrying humanitarian aid for Syrian refugees in Lebanon has arrived in Beirut. The Russian Ministry of Civil Defense and the Ministry of Disaster Reliefs say the plane took off from Moscow carrying 37 tons of humanitarian support for thousands of Syrian refugees in Lebanon who have yet to register their names with the UNHCR. Russian officials also pledged that 3 other cargo planes carrying humanitarian aid will arrive later this month. Russia has repeatedly called for a political solution in Syria and has refused to support the armed rebellion against President Bashar al-Assad. Lebanese President Michel Suleiman has condemned the deliberate negligence of Israeli authorities toward the Palestinian detainees. Suleiman told reporters that Israel abstains from offering medical care to sick detainees. He added that Israel was not committed to humanitarian ethics and agreements. Suleiman's comments refer to the death of Maysara Abu Hamdiye, who died of throat cancer in an Israeli prison. On another note, Suleiman has undergone a scheduled medical checkup at the Clinique du Levant in Calais. The presidential palace says he is doing well and has resumed activities at the Baghdad Palace shortly after. Suleiman thanked all those who wished him well via Twitter, confirming he underwent routine medical tests. Media reports said earlier that the president was admitted to hospital for cardiac catheterization. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has accused Turkish Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan of not saying a single word of truth about Syria's conflict since the beginning of the crisis. Assad's statements came during an interview with Turkish media. Damascus has regularly accused Ankara of financing, training and arming rebel soldiers. During the interview, Assad condemned the killing on March 21st of a prominent pro-regime Sunni cleric, Mohammed Saeed al-Bouti, as part of a plan to show sectarian strife in Syria. Assad claimed there is no doubt that the role of clerics, including Dr. Bouti, was key to ensuring the failure of a covert plan to create sectarian strife, and he says that is why Dr. Bouti was assassinated. The Syrian regime slams militant Palestinian movement in Hamas and its leader Khalid Mashal for breaking with Damascus, accusing them of giving up on resistance against Israel. Reports in Al Thawra Daily have fiercely criticized Mashal's decision to break with the regime, recalling Damascus's willingness to host the Hamas leader when other regional capitals refused to do so. The report comes 2 days after Mashal's re-election as head of Hamas for another 4-year term. After years of alignment with Damascus, Mashal relocated to Doha last year, severing ties with President Bashar al-Assad and declaring his support for the revolt against his regime. And coming up next, we'll show you some footage of a deadly sinkhole which swallowed a man in Florida while he was asleep. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Gaza militants fired a rocket into southern Israel following the death of a Palestinian prisoner who suffered from cancer. Abu Hamdia's death sparked Palestinian anger as officials blamed Israel for allegedly refusing to release him early on compassionate grounds. Hamas spokesman Sami Abu Zuhri told reporters Hamas was watching the developments with the greatest concern and that Israel would regret its continuing crimes. In response to Hamdia's death, a rocket was fired from Gaza and landed in an open area. No casualties or property damage were reported. Hundreds of Egyptian students broke into the headquarters of Al-Azhar Mosque to demand the resignation of University President Osama Al-Abd following a mass food poisoning. The Health Ministry says around 460 Al-Azhar University students were hospitalized after eating at a cafeteria on campus. Students said they had been long complaining about worms in the rice and vegetables and expired chicken. Though President Al-Abd promised to solve the problem, students say that nothing has changed. Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi visited many hospitalized students, while the political wing of the Muslim Brotherhood echoed the demands of the protesters. The 193-nation UN General Assembly has approved the first-ever treaty on global arms trade, seeking to regulate the $70 billion international trade in conventional arms. The resolution adopting the landmark treaty was approved by a vote of 154 to 3, with 23 abstentions. Major arms producers China and Russia joined Cuba, Venezuela, Bolivia, Nicaragua, and other countries in abstaining. As the numbers appeared on the electronic board, loud cheers filled the assembly chamber. A group of treaty supporters sought to vote in the world body after Iran, North Korea, and Syria blocked its adoption by consensus at a negotiating conference last week. The 3 countries still voted no on yesterday's resolution. Here are a few reactions.
The final draft text is a compromise text which represents the broadest possible input of delegations. That text would make a difference to the broadest range of stakeholders. It would establish new common international standards in the conventional arms trade. It would also establish a forum, the Conference of States Parties, for transparency and accountability. That text would also make an important difference by reducing human suffering and saving lives.
After years of hard work, culminating today, we have produced a strong text that fulfills the mandate given to us by this General Assembly. We believe that an effective implementation of this treaty will make a real difference for the people of the world.
DPRK shares the view that it is imbalanced. And under the current text, whose interest is best addressed? The answer is very clear. It is in the interest of the exporters. There is no balance in the interest of the exporters and importers.
North Korea has banned the entry of South Koreans to a joint industrial complex in a rare move amid high tensions on the Korean peninsula. Today's move sparked fears the North could carry out its threatened shutdown of the complex as part of a standoff with Washington and Seoul. The ministry said 861 South Korean workers are in the industrial complex, while 179 others await entry. Border crossings for Kaesong, which lies 10 kilometers inside North Korea, have been functioning normally despite soaring tensions between the North and the South. South Korea's defense ministry says it has contingency plans, including possible military action, to ensure the safety of its citizens working in the joint industrial zone. On another note, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry says his country will defend itself and its allies in the face of aggression.
We've heard an extraordinary amount of unacceptable rhetoric from the North Korean government in the last days. So let me be perfectly clear here today. The United States will defend and protect ourselves and our treaty ally, the Republic of Korea. The Foreign Minister and I also think it's important to stay absolutely focused on our shared goal of a peaceful Korean peninsula, free of nuclear weapons. And we agree that improved relations between North and South would ultimately help to move us towards that goal. That is a stated goal of the new President of the Republic of Korea, and we look forward to working with her to achieve that goal.
And now for a quick look at other news around the world. President candidate Nicolas Maduro kicks off his campaign in Sabaneta, hometown of the late President Hugo Chavez. Maduro says he chose Sabaneta as his first stop for election campaign to follow Chavez's path and complete the late president's wishes. During talks with government officials, he said investments on healthcare and education in Sabaneta will be increased. The latest opinion poll shows that Maduro has won supporters of 53.3% versus 34.7% for his opponent, Enrique Capriles. At least 7 people were killed and 6 others injured when a passenger bus crashed off an overpass in the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro. The local fire brigade says the bus carrying 18 passengers crashed near the city's international airport. The bus plunged 4 meters down on Brazil's avenue, bringing traffic to a standstill. Officials are still unaware of the cause of the accident, but several sources say that an argument between the bus driver and a passenger may have occurred on the bus. Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak has dissolved parliament, paving way for the 13th general election. Razak, whose National Front coalition has been in power for 56 years, made the announcement in a televised address. He will face opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim in what is expected to be a tightly contested race. The election is expected to be held on April 27th, following a 2-week campaign period. And a Samoan airline is now charging passengers by their weight combined with their bags, saying it's the fairest way to fly. Samoa Air, which opened in 2012, weighs passengers and their luggage at the check-in counter. Passengers are then charged per kilogram at a rate dependent on flight length, a plan that could in some cases yield cheaper tickets than conventional ones. Chris Langton, Samoa's Air CEO, says the new program is a great benefit for families and will make the airline much more efficient and fair. A new video of a deadly sinkhole in Florida shows the inside of a giant cavity that swallowed a man while he was asleep in his bedroom. The video, shot in February, was released by Hillsborough County officials. On February 28th, Jeff Bush was in bed when the other 5 members of the household heard a loud crash and Jeff screaming. The victim's brother, Jeremy Bush, jumped into the hole and kept digging to find his brother. Authorities were not able to detect any signs of life using listening devices and cameras at the scene, and Bush is now presumed dead. The Florida Department of Environmental Protection says the risk of sinkholes is common in Florida due to the state's porous geological bedrock. Incredible story now, isn't it? This marks the end of our bulletin for today, and now for a reminder of our headlines. Syrian warplanes pound a house belonging to a member of Al Awad family in Assel. The Council of Maronite Bishops calls on the formation of a unity cabinet in the implementation of the Lebanese constitution. And finally, a Russian plane carrying 37 tons of aid for Syrian refugees lands at the Rafik Hariri International Airport. And that's it from me and the news team here at FutureTV. Join us again tomorrow, same time, for more of the world's top stories. Good night.
أغادر اليوم وأنا مرتاح الضمير